So, late-night virus investigations are always some of my favorite situations to come across. The stories that I can tell you when the viruses of old are frankly everlasting. There's so many of these that I can really delve into, and all of them really have their unique flair attached to them. This one in particular is simply known as SHOEREC, a virus that I mentioned a couple times in the past that I was going to go overlook, specifically around the time when I looked at CIH.exe. Now, SHOEREC is an interesting virus that is a pretty damnable virus that can in fact screw up your win.com files, prevent you from booting in, and potentially infect a bunch of other files, and be a pretty nasty blight on your computing galore. Now, you don't really have to worry about this too much, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Windows 9X era virus, and by 9X I mean specifically 95 and 98. Anything past that and you are safe as hell. But 95 or 98, for those of you unfortunate users, are still subject to a SHOEREC virus. You might want to update Windows at some point. In fact, if you're running Windows 95 or Windows 98, I kind of have to give you a congratulation on that front, right? I mean, not often that you see that as a common used OS these days. But this virus was frankly released on the old message boards, the BBSs, the FTP servers of old. For those of you who are as old as I am, or in fact even older, you probably remember what BBS servers were. FTP servers where people uploaded files here and there, the old internet where people just shared files here and there. And this file was known just eloquently as boxing.exe, nostress.exe, and simple identifiers like that. Upon downloading such a file, we simply saw that it was a shockwave media flash file, a .swf for those of you who don't exactly remember the old shockwave media flash of old. But it was basically just a flash animation. You downloaded, it ran on the flash program, the Flash player of old, and you could basically it basically was a game, a quick little boxing game. Even opening it up, it just started up like any old game would. An introduction, even credits down to. It would come across with 4 selectable attacks on a GIF or a animation that you could just go against to your heart's content. And from all accounts, it was just a simple little program. Very tiny, very simple, and appeared to be harmless, right? Well, that is until 4 or 5 months later after running such a program when it starts really sinking its teeth into your computer. So let's get down to exactly how this situation works, right? For one, we started up a virtual machine of our own, Windows 95 in this case. You can use Windows 98, and I highly recommend you use Windows 98. But I decided to go Windows 95 because, hell, I have not touched Windows 95 since the days where I used to play old DOS games. So I figured, just for nostalgia's sake, let's go Windows 95 at this point. Now again, going into Windows Millennium Edition, Windows NT, Windows 2000, Windows XP, and anything above, SHOEREC simply won't really do anything. The payload that is launched on this is intended to stealthily put itself into programs in the Windows 9X era specifically, and launch its very destructive payloads from there. In fact, a lot of the stuff that it really attacks simply is revised or doesn't really exist in future versions of Windows, or it's in fact heavily protected. Windows 10 is far more protected than Windows 95. I don't really have to mention that, but it's just how these things go. Microsoft takes security very seriously, and often whenever there is a big issue on the Windows platform, they'll go out of their way to issue any form of a security patch nowadays. In fact, chances are your system's getting hotfixed while you're watching this video. Now, the way the infection essentially worked in this situation was that common programs on your computer such as Calculator, or, I don't know, Explorer.exe, or a help program necessarily, the Windows help tool, would basically be infected, and anytime these programs were run after 4, 5, 6, 7 months, a year, then certain specific payloads would trigger. So let's assume that you played SHOEREC in April, right, and then 4 months later you started the Calculator program, or any other Windows program, to be honest, it could be random. You are subject to launching a payload, and this could be appearing to be simple as simply icons moving around, all the way to the point where your system would face total meltdown. And I think before we get to that stage, we're actually going to look at SHOEREC really quickly. So let's do a little cut, see the analysis first, and then as always come back and sort of take our closing thoughts. And once again, we got another little analysis, ladies and gentlemen. So today we actually have, if you can possibly garner, we have a different desktop. It's not simply Windows anymore, ladies and gentlemen. No, just to prove it to you this time, we changed up the paces a little bit over here. I got a Debian system running. Let me just show you that over here. I'll just cat the issue list for this. As you can see, I'm running Debian GNU Linux number 9. I don't exactly remember what the code word for this number 9 version of Debian is. I mean, if you can remember it off the top of your head, God bless you. But me, I could give less of a fuck about that, ladies and gentlemen. And over here, we have Windows 95 running in VirtualBox. And I've had the question mentioned to be, Muda, how do you decide what program to use VirtualBox in? You seem to switch your VirtualBox parameters or your virtualization software all the time. And really, it's whatever I'm feeling like in that way, shape, or form. If you actually remember, I'm actually filming the video for next week, right after this, where I devise the gaming virtual machine. I'm going to show you guys how to build a gaming VM, so you never have to worry about reinstalling fucking Windows ever again. God bless. And also to test your viruses with relatively utmost security. Over here I have KVM, as you can see right up over here, but I'm not going to use KVM just simply due to the fact that it's kind of just setting up something that it's a lot more effort for something that really doesn't need to have that much effort put into it. Let me put it into simple terms over here. So let's start up SHOEREC, and over here is komikaze.net intikam zamani, which is just a shockwave flash file. Bunka yidir yap tigim. All right, Lord knows I can't do it. Now, there's no actual audio to it, but it's got directors, photographers, what? Okay. All right, so this individual over here is to be, okay, so I move the mouse over here. I move the arms around, I guess you could say. That's kind of cool. So let's just do a little bit of punches. Let's do a bit of punches to the right, a little left, right, left, right. Okay, you can't do it in succession. It actually has to play out the whole animation. You got one right to the head over there. And you got one down into the gut. This dude's about to crap himself. Look at that. Look at that face right there. Beautiful. Now, if I go around over here, it's generally the Shockwave Flash UI. There's nothing really that intense about it. You can full screen it, but we're not. Can I unfull screen that? Jesus Christ. Ooh, wait, how do I do it? Alt F4. Okay, there we go. Break out of it that way. But essentially what's happened is right now the payload must have triggered. And because I believe this is a stealth payload, it's going to trigger on a specific date. So let me just figure out how it's going to play out real quick. Just give me a second. So right now the payload actually just fucking totally triggered. So at this point, the payload has actually seemed to have infected in a stealth manner. So this is like one of the first stealth viruses that I actually sort of recall we're really going through with. You know, CIH was one of them, but this is one of these stealth danger zones. So we're going to go to our C drive real quick, go to Windows directory, and over here, since we're on Windows 95, now remember, you can only do this on 95 and 98. Going above is just, this virus just simply isn't compatible with those systems. So we can open up stuff like calculator, you know, I don't know, let's go to defrag, for instance, right? So you can open up basic applications, but at this point it's going to start infecting your system files. But one of the triggers for this is obviously when we switch up from July to, like, let's go 4 months in progress, so it would be about, I think, November. We'll give it like November in a couple odd days. We'll hit OK, and we'll see essentially what happens at this point. Stuff should start to basically shift. One of the things that I will do is I'll try to open up regedit. I believe yeah, here it is, registry editor, which over here we'll be able to see if it does any form of changes. I think I'm probably past the point of no return, but over here it should essentially start to trigger a payload where the icons will move around on their own. Oh, right here you can see, ladies and gentlemen. So at this point the payload's triggered. I had to launch a couple of applications in the Windows directory, so it was basically hiding a payload inside over there. So one of the things that you're seeing over here is the icons are actually moving around. So this is not some trickery going on. SHOEREC has taken over. One of its payloads is moving the icons away from the mice, right? So over here you can see that things are going away. I can't click on anything, so if I try to go to my computer, I try to corner it, it will not work. Oh wait, no, I can click it. I can click some. I have to be really crafty with it. But as you can see, it's making life a little bit difficult over here. So if Old Man Jenkins is trying to access his spreadsheets about gardening or something, I don't know what old people do on their computers. But if they're trying to fuck around with their computers, ladies and gentlemen, then well, guess what? SHOEREC is preventing you from clicking your icons. Now, of course, you don't have to worry about SHOEREC anymore. Chances are you're probably running Windows 10 or Windows 8 at the very least, 7 maybe, hopefully 7. Well, 10 is 10, whatever. You're running a modern day version of Windows. This ain't happening. I'm pretty sure nobody here right now watching the video is running Windows 98 or Windows 95. If you are, So you know what? I'm definitely feeling like control parameters have like all left the fucking window now. The actual virus itself is losing its grasp. Like some icons are refusing to move at certain points and they're not working. So yeah, you know, aside from a couple modestly annoying things, there is definitely one thing that's bad, right? If you go back to your date and time settings, which is definitely how you would trigger this in the first place, right? Setting it like 4 months ahead. Let's just say if you set it up like, I don't know, 5 years ahead from where we're supposed to be. The problem is, well, really it has to be about a year to like 2 years, I believe, for this payload to next launch. Basically what's going to happen at this point is if we can access my computer real quick and go to our C drive, and I don't know how Windows 95 handles the WinCom directories, but oh, that's kind of weird. I didn't move that. What the fuck? Okay, anyways, but one of the big things about this over here is at some point, one of your update directories is going to be a little screwed up than normal. So if you go look around real quick, you know, your Win directory, I think this might be it, the Win directory. Basically on Windows 95, you would have something called win.com. I believe it also exists on, it has to exist on 95. Basically what your win.com directory is going to do is it's going to start deleting everything off your drive. It's going to corrupt your win.com. Basically at that point, you are not able to boot in. Now, assuming that it doesn't infect or stealth infect or fuck up other files, you could theoretically reinstall your bootloader or the Windows setup, just copy your win.com directories out of there and at least be able to somewhat get on as far as my knowledge goes. You can repair Windows. It's the problem with dealing with the irreparable files or infected files that you may want to just bother abandoning in the first place. If you're carrying infected goods out to another clean system, it's just going to be as dirty as the system you had to copy it from anyways, right? Basic logic. But yeah, now as you can see, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. It's giving me like new errors related to like certain things. I believe it's still going to start, but you're starting to see like a weird situation where it's like some of the system device files that I had are just simply not going to work in this situation. So I believe Windows actually did manage to get some form of a start. It's just the more and more I keep progressing with this VM, the more and more worse it's going to get. So, I mean, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, oh, it is starting, okay, at least that is something. It's just not able to load dynamic link light. It's all related to networking, so I don't understand why it's not really working. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's all really I can say about the SHOEREC virus. All my icon transitions are sort of there. It still needs a payload to get going. But as far as it goes, let's go back to our let's go back to the main video, ladies and gentlemen. That's all the analysis we really can do. Destructive, dangerous, kind of fun, but ultimately something you don't want to have. So, closing thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, a virus coming out of Turkey infecting 10,000 computers. Now, of course, it's not like CIH where you have millions upon millions of dollars of damages. Sure, monetary damages may have been a thing, but without any form of financial target or really big attack for them to really go after, SHOEREC was essentially just kind of pseudo-harmless, I want to say. See, the situation with it is that, sure, it appeared that your icons were moving around here and there, and sometimes a reboot would often fix that, but of course, launching an infected program would put you right back into that state. But the further and further time had moved on, the payloads got even worse. See, at some point, this would actually go around, delete every file on your hard drive, and basically inject so much garbage data into your win.com file that booting up Windows may become an issue. Essentially, you were dealt with a very compromised install of Windows, compromised files, had they not even been deleted yet. This virus is pretty good at basically being stealthy, hiding itself within places, registry editing, all that good stuff. For something that looked like such a simple boxing game, it sure hit a lot of nastiness within it. Now, of course, once things were done, you were treated to the full name of the virus, or whatever was on the operating system that you were using at the time, 95 or 98, and would go around with 1999, Brain and Amjad's Private Limited. Virus SHU, which is where SHOEREC would come from, right? Record version 20, dedicated to the dynamic memories of millions of viruses who are no longer with us today. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have we essentially learned today? Viruses can appear to be harmless, have really, really, really nasty payloads, but ultimately not be much more than a giant joke from some asshole virus developer, right? I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to in this situation. Also, the other thing is that I do heavily take very seriously is be careful of the kind of stuff that you download on the internet on a daily basis. Ladies and gentlemen, SHOEREC is no laughing matter. Viruses like SHOEREC are very possible to exist in today's day and age. There are always people working their ass off to fight against any security parameters that Microsoft, Apple, Samsung, Google, whatever tech company out there is actively working against. It's an ongoing war between these people, and oftentimes times in the crossfire, you, me, and frankly, the civilian can be hit more times than we would really hope for. Cyber attacks are all too common nowadays, and frankly, whenever you come across something as simple as a boxing flash game on the internet, or hell, any tiny indie game on the internet, you always gotta be a little careful, run it through a bunch of AV engines before, because frankly, with your data being so valuable that it is nowadays, I'm pretty sure you don't want to lose it or have it compromised, ladies and gentlemen. So, that being said, SHOEREC is SHOEREC, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, we'll be taking a look at creating your own gaming virtual machine. I know, Muda, you can install Windows to another drive, but we're going to do it the fun way, okay? The really cool, nerdy way, ladies and gentlemen. So with that being said, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, and trust me, that nerdy way is definitely a good way to test for viruses, like we did for PUBG. But all randomness aside, this is me, Mudahar, and I am out.